Hello everyone and welcome to today's session, which is number 3 in the data management badging series. Today we're going to learn all about the company archive, and it's a feature which is often misunderstood. So we're going to be clearing up those confusions with what a company archive actually is. My name is Abby. I'm going to be your host for this morning. This webinar is going to last approximately 30 minutes, and that's depending on how many questions we have outstanding at the end. Now, we do have two of my colleagues on hand today to answer your questions. We have Matt and we have Michael. So, like I say, don't hold your questions until the very end. Do get them throughout the session, as we do have of those guys on hand to answer your questions. And I will also be trying to pick up some questions throughout the session as well. Just a reminder, just like every session, there is going to be a recording and you will receive that in your follow-up email, which will be sent around an hour after the session has ended. So keep an eye out for that. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. When you join the session, you will be placed on mute automatically. If you wish to ask any questions, you can use the questions panel down the right hand side, and it's just that little icon that looks like a little speech bubble with the question mark in the middle. That's then going to open up your panel where you can send your questions across. Don't forget to press the little blue send button so we can pick up your questions. If you wish to download the handout today, the little icon that looks like a little document with a folded corner, if you click on there, you will have the ability to download the handout for today. We have also included a printer-friendly version just to save yourself on some ink as well. As I mentioned, the webinar recording and links to register for future webinars and access other recordings will be sent to you in your follow-up email today. So keep an eye out for that. So a bit more about the data management badge and what this is all about. So we've done badging before, and they always prove very popular. Today's, or this week's, or rather this month's, management badge is all around data management. So to earn your digital badge, you simply need to attend any 5 of the 7 topics and the quiz. Now, you don't need to get every answer right on the quiz to be able to earn your digital badge. It's simply your attendance. Now, you do have to attend the live sessions. Watching the recordings is not going to gain you the digital badge. You do have to attend the live sessions for this badge. So as you may be aware, some of the badging sessions that we're doing, so backing up, data management tool, today's session, company archives. We're also looking at clearing your audit trail to remove all transactions, deleting customer, suppliers, nominal codes and bank accounts, clearing stock transactions and deleting product records, and flagging records as inactive to hide them from your lists. And then the quiz, which will test your knowledge on all of these topics. And all these topics go hand in hand as well, which is why we've grouped them together. Obviously, today we're focusing on company archives. If you wish to get registered for the other sessions, you can, if you've got your handout downloaded, you can click register now, it'll take you to the relevant link. Alternatively, you can wait for your follow-up email and the link will be in there as well. So this is what we're going to be covering on today's session. So we're going to look at, well, what is an archive? What is, we want to give you a bit more of understanding and, we're going to explain it in more detail. We're going to do some live demonstrations today as well, how to take an archive, how to access an archive. We're going to cover some frequently asked questions. And then we're going to talk about the differences between an archive, a backup, and the clear audit trail. Towards the end of the session, we'll look at further support and we'll, like I say, that'll be your last point to get your questions in. Now, before we begin, I just want to launch a poll on your screen there. And I'm just wanting to know, just a little bit insight, what is your understanding of the company archive? Does it remove all data? Does it take a read-only copy of your data? Or does it back up your data? Now this is just a little fun knowledge test, just prior, see where your understanding is. Don't worry if you get it wrong. It's just a little bit of fun. So I can see the votes are coming in nice and quickly now. So what we'll do is we'll wait until we get around 70%. And like I say, if you're not sure, just take a guess. We're going to go into more detail in terms of what this feature is. We'll give it a little bit longer and then we'll share the results with you. Okay, so we've got around 75% there, so don't worry if you haven't voted. Okay, so these are the results. So 17% of you think it removes old data. 71% of you think it takes a read-only copy of your data. And 13% of you think it backs up your data. So the correct answer is that it takes a read-only copy of your data. So it doesn't remove any data and it doesn't back up your data. So we're going to go into more detail now. So what I'll do is I'll hide that poll. Well done for those of you who got that right. So let's delve into what is a company archive. So an archive takes a read-only copy of your data as it appears in the program at the time, including any logon details. The best way to describe it is it's like it's taking a photograph or a snapshot of your data, but it allows you to browse through it like a normal company. Now you cannot add anything new. The only elements you can change or remove is records, so like customers and suppliers. And that's for GDPR purposes. It allows you to revisit historical data, view figures, run reports. But please note anything you change in the archive does not change in the live data because it's separate, and vice versa. So anything you change in your live company will not update in the archive. You must have the right user permissions to create an archive and to access it. So if you log in as manager, you will automatically have access, but if you log in and you do not see the option for archive, then you will need to have your level of access reviewed in the manager log with the manager logon details. It does not remove any information from the program. So if you take an archive, it is not going to change anything in your data. So I know some people are a bit worried, about taking an archive. What is an archive? It's not going to change anything. It's just like it's taking a picture of your data for you to be able to access. And it can be opened like a separate company to your live data. Now, be aware, attachments are not included. So we would recommend taking a backup to include any attachments. And lastly, you need to have access to the software to be able to view your archive file. So you must have a copy of Sage and a valid license to be able to view the archive. Please note, archive files do not sync over remote data access. So the purpose of an archive is when you've run the likes of a clear audit trail, it's going to remove data. And we're going to come into that a little bit, in the next section. So when might you take an archive? So as I've mentioned, so you might take one at year end, you might take one when you're running a clear audit trail, or before you make any significant changes. So that could be, like removing old records. So you can take an archive at any point in time, and there's no limit on how many times you can take one, but we strongly recommend to take one prior to running any of these processes. So, for example, if you've taken an archive at year end, and then you run a clear audit trail straight afterwards, you wouldn't necessarily need to take and then another one at the clear, before running the clear audit trail process. However, if you run the year end and then you run a clear audit trail later on in the year, you might then want to take one at that point. But again, we're going to go into that right now. So let's look at a timeline of when you might take an archive. So on the 2nd of February, you run the year-end process to close the prior year. On the 3rd of April, you reconcile your first quarterly VAT return and submit. 16th of May, you run a clear audit trail. On the 21st of July, you reconcile second quarterly VAT return. On the 6th of October, you clear some records down, get rid of some old customers and suppliers. And then in December, you start to prepare for the year end. So let's run back to the beginning. So when you run the year end, you'd run a backup and you'd archive you'd run an archive as well. If you're just doing a VAT return, you can just run a backup. If you're going to do a clear audit trail, so that's going to remove old transactions that you see in your transactions module. So that at that point, you would run a backup and an archive. If you're going to run another VAT return, you just need to run another backup. If you're going to clear some records down, so remove it, again, you're removing data at that point, then you're going to run a backup and an archive. So what we'll do now is we'll go into some demonstration. So we'll pop into the software. And we'll see what this looks like. So there's two places where you can find the archive option. So when you run your year end, so we'll go into the year end. So we'll go to tools, period end, and we'll go into year end. This option is always ticked when you run your year end process. So you might actually have archives that have been done every year end without you even realizing. The only time it wouldn't do an archive is if someone has unticked this option. You have got the option for your archive location, that's just editing the details, but we're going to go into that just now. So the other place that you can also run an archive without coming into the year-end process, so if you just want to run one prior to your clear audit trail or removing records, back to tools, back to period end, and then archive company. So the path to the archive, you cannot change. This will be set as default to where your data is held. So you can't change that. But what you can change is the description and the folder name. So I'm going to leave mine as mid-year 2025, and I'm just going to leave the archive folder name as well. But you can, this is a free type box, so you can change these options. So we're just going to run an archive. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to click OK. I'm not specifying any date. I'm not specifying any modules. It is for the whole company as it stands at this point in time. So that's going to have old data and it's going to have current data. The purpose of the archive, as I've mentioned, is if you want to remove that old historical data from the company, and at some point if you get audited or for whatever reason you need to go back and look at historical data, you can then go back into into the archive and see that historical data. So we'll click OK. The archive process has been complete. Now, if you've got a bigger company, I've got a very small data set. If you've got a bigger company, that might take a little bit longer as it copies that information. So we'll click OK. and that is the archive complete. So if we log into the company archive, so to access the company archives, you go to File in the top left, down to Open, and then you should see the company archive option. Again, if you don't see this option, it could be down to your level of access. But if you have got access, you have been given access, so it doesn't matter whether you're a manager or you've got your own user profile, you can log in and view the information. So we'll click on Company Archive. So as you can see, I've got some company archives that already exist. So I've got a year-end 2023, a mid-year 2024. I've got the year-end 2024, and then I've got a mid-year, which we've just taken. So you select the one from the list, and you click Open. Going to prompt me for my login details. Again, if you, if your user profile didn't exist at the time that the archive was taken, you may need to, contact whoever has the manager logon details to be able to access the archive. So I'm just going to pop in my password. Again, if you've changed your password since the archive was taken as well, you will need to enter the old password. Now, at the minute, it doesn't look like anything has changed. But if we look along the top, it's telling me I am in the archive. It is my mid-year archive, so mid-year 2025, then it'll just have the company name. Now, if we go into the archive, it's just going to look like our normal company. A few differences are, again, you can amend the details in here. You can delete records out of here as well, but you can't post anything new. And also as well, anything you change in here isn't going to change in the live company and vice versa. So if we pop into, for example, A1 Design Services, so we'll open up this record. I'm going to change the contact name from Ian Keynes. I'm going to change that to Joe Bloggs. And I'm going to click Save. So I can amend details in the records. But for example, if I was to try and add a batch invoice, it gives me a message, the option is not available when working in an archive data set or when in read-only mode. So as you can see, it's going to let you know, if you try and post anything new, it's going to let you know that you're in the archive as well. One of the key reasons that you would use an archive is, for example, if you need to run management reports for a previous financial year, so like the likes of your profit and loss can only be ran in your live company in the current financial year. If you want to run a profit and loss for a prior year, not necessarily just the one before, it could be a couple of years before, you can come into your company archive for the relevant year and you can come into nominal codes and then you can run one of your for example, your profit and loss. You can come into here, run your profit and loss. Like I say, I've ran my mid-year, but for example, if I was to go into my my January 2023 archive, I could then run it. So I'll just quickly run this one just so I can show you. When you run the profit and loss, or any report for that matter, it will tell you it's ran from within the archive and which archive that you've ran it from. Again, another reason why you might want to use an archive as well is if you want to come in and, for example, I don't have any invoices and credits in here at the moment, but say if I had an old company archive and I wanted to check an old invoice that has since been removed from the live data, you could then come into the company archive and have a look at that historical data. So it just means that you don't have to, restore an old backup, risk overwriting data. It's separate from your live data. You can come in and view historical transactions. Now you might find when you're running company archives as well, you might then have overlaps or you will have overlaps because it takes snapshots of the data, old and new data that's in there. So you might find some of your company archives will overlap in transactions and data in there as well. Now, if we go back to the live company, what I'll do actually before we do that, I'll quickly show you, you can also access other company archives from within the company archive as well, so you don't have to go back to your live data and then reopen another company archive. You can go into other company archives just by choosing that option. What we'll do now is we'll go back into the live data, so we'll click Open Company Data. It's then just going to prompt me for my password to log back into the live company. So now, as you can see, archive has now been removed from the very top, so that means we're in our live data. So if we go into our customers, where I changed that contact for that customer, so as you can see, A1 Design Services 01, the contact is still Ian Cairns, whereas before in the archive we changed it to Joe Blogs. So nothing has changed, nothing is going to impact your live data. So that is the company archive. It's a relatively small feature, very simple, but very useful if you do need to refer back to historical data and run reports in a different financial year, or you need to gather information on transactions that have since been removed by the Clear Audit Trail option. So I'll just pop back to my slides. And just coming back to this timeline as well. So as you can see, you don't have to be taking an archive, you know, every time you do a backup. It's just big processes like year end, clearing audit trail, or removing records. Really good questions that's coming from Monique there. So why would you make changes in an archive? As surely you would do this in your live data. So it could be for GDPR purposes. You may need to, you know, make changes in your archive. You know, if you know something has changed with your customers or your suppliers, you may need to, you know, it might be however many years. You may need to remove those records, those details, if you only hold those details for so long. But you may want to keep those archives for other reasons, so like historical transactional data, so like invoices, you know, you want to report on, you know, your profit and loss and things like that. Okay, so, oh, apologies there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, sorry, I'm having technical issues there. So we're going to go through some frequently asked questions there. So these are questions that we've had on previous sessions as we've run this several times before. So after archiving, can you then delete old records you no longer use, such as customers, suppliers, and nominals? So archiving is just one process, one part of the process to reduce the size of your data. So you are unable to clear any records until you've run a clear audit trail, clear audit trail process first. And again, we're going to be going into those sessions later on as we go through the badging series. So the process that you would see is you would do your archive, you do your backup, then you would run your clear audit trail process. Do we have to specify a date to run an archive? So the answer is no. It creates a snapshot, read-only copy, of your data as it is at that point in time, including current and historical data. Lastly, can I select certain areas of the software to archive? The The answer is no. So it's going to make a full copy of everything in the software as it is today, new and old. There's always a misconception, well, I only want to archive this section, or you know, and the answer is it's going to take a copy of everything. Because the last thing you want to do is want to be caught out, and you know, at least with the company archive, it's take a copy of everything. You've got everything as it is, as it stands at that point in time. Really good questions to come in there from Lynette. What happens if your archive is in an earlier version of Sage? That's fine. It will just convert the data when you come to open that company archive. So then you will be able to access it. Okay, so to compare the archive, the backup, and the clear audit trail process. So the archive, it takes a read-only copy of your data and stores it within your data path. You open it like a separate company, and it does not remove transactions from your data. You also do not specify a date to run the archive. The backup process. So again, this does take a copy of your data, but this can be saved anywhere you wish. It is designed to be restored into the program over the top of live data or as a separate company if your license allows you to do so. Once restored in, you can edit, delete, and add new information. Now, if you are going to restore over the top of live data, please do this with caution. We have done a backing up session as part of the badging series. We will be doing repeats of this badge as well. If you, if you do, don't manage to make all of the sessions this time, you can attend the next time we do this badging series. But you are going to be able to watch the recording as well. And then lastly, the clear audit trail process. So this process does remove transactions. It's designed to remove all the transactions to reduce the size of your data and keep things tidier and more organized. You would enter a date that you want to clear up to. So for example, if you wanted to keep 6 worth years of data, you would enter a chosen date, and then anything before that date would be removed given it fits the criteria. Again, we're going to be covering this in next week when we do the clear audit trail process. Got some questions that have come through there as well. While in archive, can you print reports? So that one's from Lorraine. So yes, everything is the same in terms of when you run reports, you can email them, print the reports, exactly the same. You can do that as well. Okay, so just while the other questions are getting picked up, I'm just going to summarize the session. So archiving creates a read-only copy of your data, including all historical and current information. It does not remove any transactions. You can take archives at any time, but it is typically done as part of the year end or before running the clear audit trail process. You will need to use the same user credentials you used when creating the archive. I know a question did come in before if you have issues accessing the archive in terms of especially not having the manager login details. We do have a process in place. You would just need to contact our support team for that. It does enable you to view historical data, edit and delete records, and run reports. But lastly, you cannot add any new data. Now, if you want to find out more about the processes we've talked about today, so archiving and company data, backing up your data, clearing your audit trail, I've provided some guides on your handout here where they're going to walk you through these steps. So it's a really handy guide, and you can also print off those guides and share them with colleagues as well. Okay, so this is your last chance now to get your questions in before we wrap up the session. Again, just a reminder, the recording of the session is going to be included in your follow-up email alongside the links to register for future webinars and access other recordings as well. And that email is going to be sent out around an hour after the session has ended. Really quite questions that's just come in there. So the version of Sage always needs to be restored in order to access an archive. So as you progress in your versions, as we release new versions, it will always convert the archive into your current version. So don't worry if you have got archives that appear in older versions, you will be able to access those because it will convert those archives for you. Okay, so just while we're waiting for any last questions to come through, just a reminder how you can get access to our webinars if you're not familiar with the process. So you can access webinars for Sage 50 accounts and payroll just by going to sage.co.uk/webinars. You can also get that bookmarked if you wish, so you've got quicker access to our free learning. Again, you've got access there for live sessions and for recordings as well. Okay, so that does bring us to the end of today's session. Please feel free to stay around for the next minute or so if you do have any last questions or you're waiting for an answer. And I hope you've enjoyed today's session as well and you get a better understanding of that process. If you've got what you need today and you want to leave the session, again, you are going to receive that email in around an hour or so with links to both our webinar schedule and today's recorded session for you to refer back to if needs be. You're also going to see a short survey at the end as you leave. If you could please pop a comment on there, short comment, long comment, what you liked, what you would have liked to have seen. I do like to read every single comment on there, really do appreciate that. We always look at ways to improve our sessions as well. So if you can, pop a comment on there, that would be great. Okay, so it looks like all the questions have been answered. So I want to say thank you to Michael and Matt who have been on hand today to answer your questions. And thank you to you all for your participation as well. Just a reminder, we have got plenty of sessions over the next couple of weeks, so don't be shy and get registered. So I want to cover one last question that has come through from Natalia, so hopefully I've pronounced that right. So can the archive be used as the backup if the backup was not taken at the time? No. So you still need to be taking regular backups because the archive is read-only. So it's just for references. So you can't add anything new, you can't store that in, and you can't work from the company archive. So make sure that you take regular backups of your data. The company archive does not replace the backup, so please don't be reliant on the company archive for that. Question there from Lorraine. We changed to our VAT to cash accounting. Can I access previous archive versions? So, your VAT scheme shouldn't impact accessing archives at all. It's just a read-only copy of your data from previous financial years or prior to making any big changes. Okay, so that's all the answers to the questions. So I want to say another thank you and take care for attending this session as well. Thank you.